I'm Deanna Ossa.
I'm Josh Dobken.
And you're listening to The Sweet Success.
You've just checked in to Sweet Success. Join me, Katie Cline, for exclusive conversations with hotel executives, hospitality leaders, and industry innovators. Together, we'll uncover the strategies and techniques these masters of hospitality relentlessly refine. Whether you're already in the industry or just starting out, tune in every week to unlock the secret to your sweet success. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sweet Success. I'm your host, Katie Cline, and today I'm excited to welcome Deanna Ossa and Josh Dobken to the show. Both Deanna and Josh are trained architects and have recently added real estate investor, designer, and hotelier to their already impressive resumes. Their first hotel, Terra Palm Springs, opened in January with a strong focus on wellness amenities such as Himalayan salt spa, cold plunge, rain room, and so much more. Deanna was born in Colombia, and prior to her entry into hospitality, she focused on designing large multifamily developments, including Princeton University's new Lake Campus Residence Hall. Josh is originally from Red Bank, New Jersey, and he specializes in billion-dollar developments, including professional and collegiate entertainment venues, sports facilities, and hospitality projects. Deanna, Josh, thank you both so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you, Katie, so much for having us.
I'm really excited to get to pick both of your brains. Terra looks, absolutely incredible. And I would expect nothing less from two architects with your pedigrees. But before we jump in, I want to know how you two first met.
So yeah, Josh and I met about 12 years ago. We were going to grad school in Washington University in St. Louis. We were both getting our degrees in architecture and construction management. So that's how we met.
Yeah, I was actually Deanna's TA for a period of time. We were friends for a bit before we started. We were friends for a bit before we started dating, and we just really bonded over a lot of different things. And I was graduating pretty quickly after, and then Deanna went off to go work in Seattle, and I stayed more locally in the Kansas City area. And there's a little bit of long distance, but then we came back together for the long haul.
I love that. My husband and I were long distance at first too. I think it's a really good test, and especially when you're young, it kind of gives you that freedom of having space and being your own person, and then actively choosing to want to get back together with that person.
I cannot agree with that more.
Yeah. So obviously a love of architecture was something that bonded you guys right away. You're both incredibly successful architects. What made you want to split your focus from just architecture to design, construction management, real estate investing, hosting midterm rentals, and of course now owning and operating a hotel?
Yeah, it was definitely a long road to get here. And it's funny because we get asked a lot of why. I was like, it's expected that architects would be their own developers. And it's funny because it's never the case. More often than not, we didn't, our entire careers, we didn't know a single person that was an architect that was developing their own projects. It was something that was not taught to us. So it definitely took us a long time to realize that this was something that we could do. And it honestly happened with COVID. I think COVID changed a lot of people's perspectives around life and what they wanted about their lives. We were in Seattle at the time, trapped in a 700 square foot apartment. The two of us, we were saving a ton of money because we were very fortunate that Josh's company was paying for our living expenses at the time, since Josh had been relocated to Seattle specifically to work for a project in Seattle. So it all started honestly very kind of like a fun thing. I'm very curious and I always need to be learning something and keeping myself busy. And at the time, I had finished my architectural license. I kind of had nothing on my plate, and Josh has a finance background. And I was like, why don't we start doing something with the money we're saving? But at the time I was very focused on stocks and maximizing my 401k. I did not know anything about real estate. I thought that it was something that only rich people could do. I never in a million years thought that this was something we could do. But yeah, long story short, we kind of stumbled upon real estate, realizing that a lot of people with less experience than us jump into it. And so that gave us a little more confidence of like, this is something that we can do. Like, we understand construction, we understand real estate, we understand design. But then I think really what pushed us over kind of the hump of getting started and accelerated the process was in 2021 during COVID. Unfortunately, my dad got COVID and he passed away after battling with COVID for 4 months. And shortly after, 2 months later, Josh's dad, who had been battling with cancer for 6 years, passed away. So we both, it was like a terrible year of like back to back, like really tough experiences. Like, we had each other through that and like understanding each other's pain. But I think it put a fire under us of like, we need to change the path we're going in and like how we're living life. Like, architecture is incredibly demanding. We worked easily at the minimum 60-hour weeks and often 120 hours a week. Like, it was incredibly demanding. So I think like that was the start of it all, of wanting to get into real estate.
Wow. I'm so sorry to hear that.
It was sudden and surprising. Deanna's father's passing, and we had these different kind of takes on what it's like to process all of that. Because for her, it was very sudden, and for me, I was working really hard on this project, getting it all, focused on that, and knowing that my dad is going through a different sort of process where I was always telling myself, oh, I've got time to, like, after the work is done, go and like take a long trip with him, go and do this thing. He ended up passing away the weekend that the project opened, where I barely got home to see him. He was already laying in his deathbed by the time I flew back to New Jersey to see him from Seattle. And it was just like, oh, damn. Well, you don't always get that. You can't rely on that tomorrow. Like, and doing that is just a tough thing to do when you put your job and your career first, and you still want to be, engaged with family members and friends and people around you.
Yeah, I'm so truly sorry for both of you. I mean, what a horrible experience individually, and then for them to happen so close together when you're looking to one another for support. In a lot of ways, I guess you both really understood what the other one was going through. But at the same time, it was just like grief after grief after grief. And it sounds like it really put a lot of things in perspective for you guys.
It certainly did.
Yeah. And Deanna, it's interesting what you said about how it's almost expected for architects to develop their own projects. And I know when you and I first chatted, that was something that I very quickly thought of. Like, I almost feel like people are always looking for the reason why someone else could do something, but why we can't. So I'm very interested in owning a motel or a hotel one day. And when I was hearing your story, my brain automatically goes to, well, they're architects, so of course they can do it. And I said that to you. And I don't know if you remember what you said back to me, but I have been quoting it. It should be a bumper sticker if it's not. Since you said it to me, do you remember what you said?
I don't remember.
I'm very interested in what you said now.
She said to me that someone told you once, everyone has an unfair advantage. You just need to figure out what yours is. And that was such a like mind-blowing comment to me, because you're completely right. But we don't think about it that way. We look at everybody else's unfair advantage and we're sitting over here thinking, oh, what am I going to do? Because you said that you didn't even realize the unfair advantage that you guys had was your architecture training.
100%. And it's funny. It sounds so silly because looking back, it's so obvious. But when we got started, we were doing like the path that everyone else does, buying residential real estate, doing BRRRRs and doing short-term rentals. But neither of us are trained in residential. We had never done a renovation. Like, everything that we do is new construction. So to be honest, the whole time I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is new to me. I don't know what that is supposed to look like because I just designed it brand new. And not like a retrofitted thing that has been fixed for the last 50 years wrong. So it was so funny because it took us a long path to like realize like, why are we following everyone else's path and doing what everyone else is doing and in the same linear manner when like, if we go a little bit bigger, and that's when hotels came, and we go a little bit bigger, if we align more with ourselves and what we're passionate about, we could actually do something much grander. And it's a completely different path than what everyone else does, but we also have a different training than everyone else does. So it was a light bulb moment, literally like probably like a year and a half into investing that we were like, wait, why are we not doing something like commercial? And why are we not doing hotels? Like that was a light bulb moment.
Yeah, it was so much more aligned with, I think, our professional training. Just the traditional residential path is an important path for people to take that might not have that familiarity, but having that familiarity meant we could kind of leapfrog a little bit. I mean, we've been working on projects much larger than Terra for years, and so it felt a little bit more comfortable almost to jump into that space than to stay in the residential world. We were like learning to walk, but from a different path.
Yeah.
Almost. It was different.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you're saying. It takes confidence to do something different than what you perceive everyone else as doing. And to your point, you were seeing everyone else do single family residential, I imagine. And I think probably the reason that most people find that more approachable is because they might have bought a house or renovated a house at some point in their life, or at the very least, they've lived in a house before. So they have some familiarity. Whereas, like you said, you guys have experience with these large scale projects, even large scale residential and some hospitality projects. So all of a sudden, when you gave yourself permission to do things your way, you're like, hang on, this is much more interesting to us. What was it that made you guys want to invest in a hotel?
We were going
San Diego.
We were in San Diego, but we were both struggling also a little bit with identity at the time of, again, just like who you surround yourself with. And everyone in our circle at the time was in a path of like, I need to quit my job and I hate my job and real estate is the path forward. And Josh and I very much felt that that could be the path forward, but we didn't hate our jobs. We loved being architects and designers. And we almost struggled like that entire time of like, if we weren't architects, then who were we? Like we have had that identity like so clear with us for so long. And so we were a little bit struggling with that and like thinking like, do we really want to continue doing more of the same, more residential forever? Like that didn't seem like something that we were excited about. And we were actually in San Diego. We were at a conference. We were too cheap to stay at the hotel for the conference. So we actually booked an Airbnb nearby the conference, not realizing that it was a Sonder hotel. And when we had the Sonder hotel experience, like we checked in, like everything was automated, like their app systems, like we checked in and it was a beautiful building, really well designed. And I remember like the entire time we were just like kind of mesmerized by it, like trying to understand the guts of it. Like it was definitely an old building that had been transformed. And we walked around a lot, like trying to see the rooms, how they had reshaped the building to make it work as a hotel. But there was no front desk. The only people on site were the maintenance, like there were cleaners. And then like we saw like one maintenance guy. And like, I think at that moment, like I always joke that I have, like I have my best ideas in the shower. And I came out of the shower and I told Josh, I'm like, Josh, why are we not doing this? Like we do commercial. I specialize in multifamily. So like this scale is my bread and butter. Why are we not doing this? We can actually pour our love into design, which we love to do, the hospitality piece. And like that was the moment that we're like, we need to get into and understand how to underwrite and raise capital and do hotels, because all of a sudden that became a path that we both got really excited about and that it could be our future.
Josh, your reaction right away was yes, or was it like,
No, it made so much sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I would look at it is it was it was uncomfortable, but not unattainable. Like everything there felt like this feels like a natural step to take for the two of us. We kind of found that was in the theme of what Deanna said earlier, our unfair advantage, where we're like, this is just a bunch of Airbnbs kind of in one very well put together package. And thinking about it like that, I mean, it's a lot of effort to put each of those individually together and to do all of that work. As you know, if that's 13 or 14 projects, that's a lot. That's a year's worth of work or more for a person. But when you put it into one space, one building, that it's a lot of leverage that you gain by doing it that way. And I think for us, it just like clicked. It was like, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah. And Deanna, you mentioned, the next steps where you need to figure out how to underwrite and how to finance a property like this. So I guess once you guys, hopefully got dressed and ready for the day after the shower, but then sat down and said, okay, we're going to do this. What did you decide your ideal buy box for the project was? And was it's definitely going to be in Palm Springs, or how did that come about?
It definitely didn't start at that point. We looked in a lot of different markets. We were living in Kansas City at the time and investing there. So we actually started looking locally and looking at buildings that were in areas that got a lot of activity, a little bit more commercial, walkable, had character and potential, and were being a little underutilized. And we found like the perfect space. And we pursued that for probably about 6 months. We walked this building. It was like maybe the second or first oldest existing building in Kansas City, in a fantastic area. And we just couldn't, at the end of the day, make it align with what the owner of the building was looking for. And so it kind of started us on this path of exploring other options. But I think that a big component of that too is we found the right people to teach us how to do a lot of this stuff. And maybe you can chat a little bit more about that side of it too.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember we were at this conference, all of a sudden, like all the conversations were around telling people we want to do boutique hotels. And all of a sudden we started hearing like, oh, this person does boutique hotels. Oh, you should contact this person. So it was really interesting starting to tell people, because you never know who can connect you with who. And we had a lot of like really amazing investors that had experience in underwriting commercial deals. So they started teaching us how to underwrite these commercial deals, what to look for, what are the fall points, how do you raise capital, what does lending look like? So that was like a lot of experience that we didn't have. But I think it was also like a lot of mindset work that we were doing at the time. I remember at the time, the book 10X is Easier Than 2X came out. And that has been like, since then, one of my favorite books. I read it at least twice a year. Because it's always pushing us to like rethink the way that we're currently doing things and like reframe every decision that we're making of like, is this the path we're taking because it feels comfortable and it's what we've been doing already? Or is that the 2X path, or is there another path that is a 10X path that can get us there much faster? And one of them, like Josh said, was getting that education. We started telling everyone, we want boutique hotels. This is what we are excited about. And we had a friend connect us with Blake Daly. We were like actually having dinner and like at the spot, he was like, I have your guy, texted Blake and put us in contact. Blake was starting his mastermind. And he was like, absolutely, I will help you guys with whatever you need. We started chatting with him. We joke that we're like the OGs of the mastermind because we started the mastermind before there was even a mastermind. It was like helping us underwrite. And it was just like a complete shift on like what we were doing, and which is incredibly scary. Like now, once you put that extra zero into your purchase buy box, like it's terrifying. Like I remember the first time we for over $1 million, we're like, oh my goodness, what are we doing? Like this is scary. But we were surrounded by people who had so much experience, who had done it themselves, who were holding our hand the entire time. And that helped us feel confident that like, okay, this is something, the architecture, construction, budgeting, all of that, we can master, but it was the learning how to acquire the hotel and the operations that we needed the most support with.
Yeah. It's interesting because earlier you had mentioned you were around and surrounded by people who were investing single family homes. And then now you've intentionally surrounded yourself with people who are either in the boutique hotel space or wanting to be in the boutique hotel space. And it's such a powerful reminder of like our environment creates our future in a lot of ways, right? And Blake has been a guest on this podcast as well. I really love his approach. Not to speak ill of other people, but some areas, some people, some industries, you see a lot of the quote Instagram gurus saying certain things and not actually walking the walk and talking the talk. And I think Blake is the absolute antithesis of that. And from your experience with him, it sounds like it was. So I imagine that financing a hotel, like you said, adding that extra zero, that's probably one of the biggest stumbling blocks that people come across that immediately make them say like, oh, I could never. But instead of saying I could never, you guys put yourself in the room with people to learn how that could happen. So how did you approach the financing?
So it was definitely been, like Josh mentioned, we've had different hotels. Terra was the third hotel we have tried purchasing. And every hotel has had a different strategy for the financing. And I think like that's the beauty of commercial that I think really excites us as well, is that you're not just buying a piece of real estate that goes up and down with your neighbors in the market, and completely like your ability to control the cost and the value of that piece of real estate is very limited to what's happening around you. With commercial real estate, there are so many levers that you can push and pull, and it's seen as a business. So the more you set it up as a business that produces income and pays for itself, that is how banks are going to see it as well. So actually financing a hotel is not that difficult if you have a solid business plan. Even like with buying hotels that, like Terra, for example, had no financial backing because it had been shut down for 2 years before we bought it. But whether like if you were buying a piece of real estate, that a residential home, like a lot of banks would like walk away from that. It's a similar where like regular commercial banks didn't want to finance it, but similar strategies in residential. There's banks, hard money lenders that would finance those type of construction. So it's actually not that different to residential. It's just at a much larger scale. But there's also a lot more opportunities. There's business loans. There's so many opportunities of how to approach the financing of a hotel, because you're talking about a business versus like the two individuals that own the place. So that was also another thing that we learned a ton from Blake, raising capital, surrounding ourselves with those people. And I also think like sharing our story through Instagram has been really helpful. We're trying to improve on how much we share because we're not. we tend to put Instagram to the side. It's always like the last thing, but we know the value that has of sharing the story, sharing what you're doing. That when we were telling everyone we want to invest in hotels, people had seen. We had already been raising capital for like smaller residential projects. People had seen how we function, how we work, the way we do things, the quality of the work that we do, where people were already like, next project, please count me in. Like, I want to be part of your project because we had been showing to other investors the kind of people that we do versus just coming as a stranger being like, please trust me. So I think that was also a really big part of just creating like a track record that made it easier to raise capital when the time came.
I would also add to that and say, like, in the areas where we didn't feel like that was our strong suit too, partnering is a big part of that too. That, bringing the right partners into what we do to complement not just our skills, but our vision, and that also have some of the strengths in the areas where we might have a little bit less experience.
Mm-hmm. So you found the site for Terra, which you said is the third hotel that you tried to move forward with. It sounds like the first two did not come to fruition. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, we walked away from it.
Yeah, that's a great reminder for people too, that like it's okay. It's not just like, if you would have said the Kansas City property, this isn't working, forget it, we're not doing hotels, you would never have Terra now. So you found a third site, you raised the money, and like Josh was just saying, for areas that weren't your strong suits, you were able to find partners. But I imagine when you started designing and renovating the hotel, that's really where your guys' expertise shone through. So did that now feel like you're back in your wheelhouse, like you were saying earlier about being in these multifamily, bigger projects as opposed to the single family ones that you had been doing previously? Or did it feel like an entirely different scope because now all of a sudden you're in charge, you're the final decision maker, you're the one writing the checks and deciding what is and isn't going to happen?
Definitely both of those. But the entire time, it was so rewarding, and like we worked like around the clock. It was an incredibly hard process because obviously we've done a lot of these big construction and big projects surrounded by a team, and now we're doing it by ourselves when we are the ones doing everything from permitting, procurement of materials, specs, like we're doing everything, talking to the contractor, coordinating with the city, doing the construction management on site. So it was a ton of work, but it was so rewarding because we felt so comfortable. Like that was the place where like, we know we both shine. We know that we went to school for that. Like we are very passionate about that part of the project, but we would always joke about like, it's so interesting like wearing both hats, like you said. Like there are times that like I'm wearing my architect hat, and as an architect, like this is what we need to do and the way that I want the space to look like. And then I would have to put that owner hat and be like, but we can't afford that.
Or we have to keep the schedule going.
Yeah. Or like that's gonna happen in the timeline that we need, and we need to open by this date. So it was an interesting and like a lot of lessons of being on both positions, being owning both hats, and being able to make the best decisions for the project from both perspectives. I think it was tons of lessons that we are going to take to the next one, but also a lot of growth personally. And like Josh mentioned, like Terra's the smallest project like that we had done into like compared to like our experience, but knowing that we own it and that like every inch of it has been thought through and decided by us, like it's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah. And as you said earlier, you guys were used to those 40, 80, 120 hour weeks. It sounds like this might have been equally long hours, but at the end of the day, you knew it was yours versus putting in all of that time for somebody else.
100%. The reward was incredible.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to know that when you're grinding away hours like that, that it's going to be your baby. And it changes your perspective on working so tirelessly sometimes. Cause, like sometimes you can just work hours and hours for these big projects. And then at the end of the day, they fall apart or they completely change, or I've had that happen many times in my line of work. And, it's like you pour a lot of effort and energy into these things, and then you're expected to just turn your back and go focus on something else. And that in itself gets really tiring. So being able to control that process a little bit more is huge. It makes a huge difference.
And it's interesting that of the three, it's Palm Springs that worked out because, again, I think a lot of times we'll hear narratives from people that maybe are or are not true. But if you think about Palm Springs, I would assume that is a very saturated market from both short-term rentals and motels. Yet you mentioned earlier that this particular property was sitting on the market for 2 years. So what was it about this location, this project, that made the financials work to even get started and get it off the ground running versus the other two that you had looked at before that?
I would say the biggest difference is, and I think this also helped us to niche down on the value that we bring. The other two projects, so the first project, to give you a little context, and Josh mentioned a little bit about this, we were really focused on trying to find a different strategy that no one else was looking at. So we were in Kansas City. We knew we wanted to be local to the project. So at the time, that's what made more sense. But it was COVID, and we knew that office buildings were not they were not selling, they were sitting vacant. No one wanted an office building, but often office buildings are in the perfect location. So that was our strategy of going after office buildings that we would walk. And because we understand the construction and the architecture behind it, like the layout of the space, we kind of had a sense of like, how hard would this be to turn into a hotel? And we also know the zoning process and the permitting process, where we knew that the process to change an office building into a hotel was not that complex. Like, we knew we could make it happen. Right. So that's the strategy of like getting the best price for the land. That deal didn't work through. Then for the second hotel in Estes Park, this was a 20 unit, it was cabins, 20 cabins in a 4-acre site. And we were going to develop some geodomes.
It was right outside of Rocky Mountain National Park.
It was stunning.
So, amazing location.
Yeah. But this is where we learned that really the purchase price is incredibly important. The hotel was being sold as development potential, but the hotel itself was already at the top of the market for that market. It was the best looking one. So like there was not that much value to add. Really, the deal was adding the geodomes. So when we found out that we couldn't develop geodomes because of the specific location of this site, that's the deal. And we had to walk away from it because there was just not enough. It would have been a perfect project for someone else, but for the value that we wanted to bring to a project, it was just not the right project for us. And similarly, when we found the project in Palm Springs, I think it was the perfect size where people were not looking at it. It was too small. It was 13 rooms. It was too small for people with experience, for larger developers that are looking for their next project. But the project had, so fun fact, it used to be a male nude hotel in Palm Springs. Which is very common in Palm Springs.
That's very specific.
Really specific.
There's quite a few clothing optional facilities in Palm Springs.
Okay.
And the previous owner, he had purchased it with the intention to turning it into an apartment building. So he had already started some of the demo. He had taken out everything out. Like there was no tile, there was no plumbing, there was no toilets, there was nothing. He got stuck in the permitting process, and at the end, he lost too much money and he decided to sell it. So what we got was basically a ton of framing, a roof, and a foundation.
With a couple of pools.
That's really what it had. But it was so much concrete. So it was also a really big project for someone's first hotel because there was not even furniture. It was completely empty. Everything needed to get purchased. If you wanted to make it something, especially in a saturated market, it was going to take a really big lift. So I think it was the perfect spot where no one was actually paying attention to this property because it didn't fit either spectrum, but it was a perfect first hotel for us. We're small enough where it was manageable operation-wise for us to test our systems, to see like how we operate and like create something really special. But also it required a ton of construction, which is where we can excel at and make something really awesome out of what it was there. So that was, I think like that's why we were able to get it, and we got it for a really good price compared to the market. And then we knew that if we could get it for a good price, we had a lot of leverage to add a lot of value to the hotel.
It's incredible.
I don't have anything to add to that one. That's exactly right. It's just, we looked for a value add opportunity, and that value add opportunity was enough to scare almost anybody else at this size away. But that's exactly what we were looking for.
I could understand why, because with my newbie hat on, I would look at that and say, if someone else is walking away from this, that must mean it's going to take a lot of money to get it back. And what do I know about what I'm doing? But hey, here's two architects who definitely know what they're looking at. So it really goes back to knowing your strengths and finding something that worked for you guys.
Absolutely.
It gets back to that unfair advantage again. I feel like that's now become the theme of the podcast.
I tell you, I am obsessed with that. The amount of times I have quoted it since we had that conversation. I think there could be a whole merch line. Maybe you'll sell it in the gift shop at Terra. Who knows? But
I love that.
I know that you guys put a lot of importance on brand building. So what does the Terra brand represent, and how did you go about creating it?
Yeah, this is definitely a team effort into creating what Terra is today. Like Josh mentioned, for this hotel, we partnered with two other investors, and one of them, her big focus is marketing and branding, and she kind of led that part of the hotel. It was a perfect combination of, I think, personalities and goals that we had. We were coming into the hospitality space wanting to create something beautiful and an amazing experience that we knew we could create from the design perspective. And she was coming at it as creating an experience that doesn't exist before and how to separate ourselves from the rest. And that's where like the blend of the two coming together created Terra. Terra really came from initial, which is really funny. When we started underwriting the hotel and we found the hotel, we were obviously incredibly conservative with where do we fit with our average daily rates and where do we fit with the market. Design wise, we were also like estimating, like, let's assume we just end up in the middle of the road. There's hundreds of hotels to choose from in Palm Springs. But I think the more we learned about the market, the specifics about what are people looking for, who are the people coming here, we realized that there was a hole in the market and that no hotel was really taking the wellness aspect like fully on. There were hotels offering spa services, but that was as far as it would go. And it would just be like, get a massage at our hotel. But no one was really taking it to the next level of like wellness in a hotel space in Palm Springs. So that's where Terra came from, is like we wanted to fill in that gap that people were looking for in Palm Springs but didn't exist. And everything became about how to create a very serene environment, a very earthy environment. All the materials we chose were like materials that you want to touch, or at least us designers want to touch because they're weird. But everything became like really earthy, out of this earth, like the ethos of the brand. Yeah, like grounded, come here and restore yourself. The ethos of the brand, like caring about the environment. So it kind of came all together from like that brand perspective of like what we wanted Terra to be known for and stand out compared to the rest of the hotel, so that we wouldn't, in Palm Springs, everyone goes for the mid-century modern type of design. So everyone ends up looking the exact same. And we wanted to be completely different to that, so that there was a reason why people choose us over everyone else.
Josh, anything to add on that one?
That was perfect. I don't want to take anything away from that one. That was great.
And you guys have opened in January, and I'd love to hear what guests are saying. But I know right before we started recording, Deanna, you had mentioned you've had some incredible press coverage come in.
Yeah, it's honestly been like, I think the most surprising part of it all, because that's not why we did all of this for, but seeing the impact in what people are saying, the reviews. So far, knock on wood, we've only had 5-star reviews. Everyone, we were at the hotel, like living in Palm Springs for about the first 3 months of being open. We just moved out. We're in LA currently, but we're still going to the hotel every single weekend, trying to detach ourselves a little bit from the operations and let the team go with it and run with it. But because we've been there, we've had a lot of interactions with guests that either don't know that we're the owners or eventually find out that we're the owners. But it's been so rewarding to see people utilize the space, what people say about it. I think that to me has been the most rewarding part of it. There's people that like, we had a proposal on site, people like we've already had some weddings that have been planned. Couples that are like, this is our new favorite spot. We're going to come every single year. And like, just seeing the memories that they're creating in a space that we design, like that is everything. Like that is why we do everything that we do.
Yeah.
But the press doesn't hurt. And the press has been awesome. Yeah, we were very surprised. We were last week it came out the IT list of Travel and Leisure, and we were placed as one of the best 100 new hotels in the world, out of 10 out of the US, and we were in that list. So it blows our minds that
like you're saying it right now, and I'm still like,
yeah, but it's been really well received, which makes us feel even better about the worth that the hard work has brought, and even more excited for the next one, what we can achieve for the next one.
And what is the plans for what's next?
That's a great question.
We need another aha shower moment, I think.
We do. I think we do.
well, we are going back to San Diego, so maybe that's like
That is true.
that's like our epiphany or epiphan. I don't know what the word would be, but that's the place where epiphanies happen. So let's get another week.
So nothing specific planned yet, but you know you want to do it again.
We want to definitely continue the Terra brand, or like what Terra stands for. I think ideally we would both want to create a collection of hotels, and they don't all have to be named Terra, but part of the same group of hotels so that guests can expect the same level of hospitality, the same level of design and quality of the experience. We definitely want to it's probably not the next one, but I think a big goal for us would be to eventually do new construction and like fully develop ground up, because that's really our background is new construction. Being able to have control over every single aspect of the project, I think like that's where we can shine the most. So I think that's in the future plans, but I think for the next one would be like recreating some of the aspects of what we created with Terra, maybe a little bit bigger. I think there's some efficiencies of scale that can come from going a little bit bigger. 13 is really probably the smallest that we'll ever purchase. But yeah, wanting to find another hotel that has good opportunity, that has good amount of land where we can maybe do a combination again of renovation and new construction and really add amenities that guests in today's culture, guests will really pay extra for the experience. So if we can create that experience, that's what we're after.
Absolutely. Do either of you have any predictions for the future of hotels or hospitality in general?
I mean, it's hard to say. Because like what we see in one market may not be representative of every market, and we're still in this. We're very much learning about different areas as we have been working not just for our own projects, but with some other people within our circles, and we definitely think that there is reason to believe that people want wellness experiences for sure.
Yeah, I would say if I had to guess, I think today's culture, today's traveler is a very different traveler than maybe like our parents were, where it was just like the convenience and easy and family oriented. I think our culture is turning more into, well, social media also doesn't help. Where like everyone wants to share, they want shareable content, shareable moments. So a lot of what we designed in Terra was finding that Instagrammable moment of like, where do we imagine if I were a visitor, if I were a girl coming to this hotel, what would be the shots that I would take of the hotel and be able to push the brand further. people want that. People want to share where they're at, share a cool experience.
Uniqueness.
Yeah, the uniqueness. People are willing to pay for that. But I think if I had to guess, I think our society is definitely moving more into the wellness aspect, taking care of ourselves. Things that will improve our lifestyle, or like where we start becoming like the center of the experience. I think there's going to be a huge growth in the wellness community and people wanting that experience wherever they go.
Yeah. Deanna, Josh, I want to ask you guys the last 3 questions that I ask everyone. And the first is, what was the best hospitality experience that you guys have ever personally had?
I wonder if we're agree with this one. For me, it was, I don't know if it was the best one, but definitely like the most memorable at the moment because it happened recently. We spent 2.5 weeks in Hawaii and
did some market research. Went to
a lot of market
9 different hotel experiences, and we stayed.
Wow.
We went from 5-star all the way. We went hostel to 5-star. We did it all.
Airbnbs, everything.
Wow.
To see, like how people like the experience, the operations, design, like what are people looking for? I would say from that one, the most memorable, we stayed at the one in Hanalei Bay in Kauai. We were both obsessed with it just from the design. They do an amazing job with their design, so we really wanted to see that. But also, I think it came down to the little touches. Like there was small details in every single decision that they have made that they make the guest a part of it. And you can see it everywhere. And I just so much appreciate like those small moments that like, they don't cost much. They don't like, it's not like the big aha moments. Like there's plenty of those, but it's the little touches where like they make the guest part of their ethos and their experience. And like, they care a lot about the world. And like, it's just, they make you part of that environment from the second that you walk in. And I think to me, that has been like the most well-rounded experience that I've had.
Josh, would you say the same for you?
I would definitely have to agree. There are other hotels that I think I've also fallen in love with the experience of. It definitely feels like, and the one is a huge hotel, but they've done a really good job of making such a large facility feel
Boutique.
Small and boutique. And that was to me the most moving part of that, is that they have a level of detail that you wouldn't expect to see at a hotel of that size. And I think that is something that I really took away from that space. But I feel like my favorite experiences all lean toward that unique, detailed spaces. You know, it's not going to be a hotel that could just be placed anywhere on any site in any facility. Somehow it's really engaged in the landscape and it takes advantage of whatever climate it's in. So I have a few different ones that I think of, but the one definitely stands out above the rest.
Incredible. On the flip side of that, what's the worst hospitality experience that you guys have ever had?
What do you think?
Does it have to be hotel, or is it like, because I've
No, it could be anything. I mean, to me, JFK Airport comes up time and time again when I think about bad experiences.
So yeah, must be a New Yorker then.
Yeah, yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I know that experience. Gosh, that's a good question.
I think we bounce a lot, especially like right now in the last 3 years. We've been living in Airbnbs primarily. We've been very nomadic. So I would say it's hard to like pinpoint exactly. We've stayed in very terrible ones. Not because of the space necessarily, although it does add a lot, but like I think the level of touch to the person staying there. I think the places that feel transactional, that people, that what you book looks like one thing, because you can definitely tell that it's people that are only focused on how does this space photograph. And then when you actually go into the space, you realize that it is nothing like what you expected, because the space itself is now well thought of, not thought of how people experience a space, how people live in a space, how people use it, and like the feeling that you want people to feel like. It feels very transactional. Even communication with the operators. I think those to me have been like the worst experiences where like I always, from the moment I walk in, I'm like, I can't wait to leave. Like that's not something that I want to feel when you get somewhere. And I have had plenty of those.
And I don't know if it's like a designer or architect sixth sense, but during the process of working on the hotel, so I have my salary, my W-2 role in Los Angeles. And so I was commuting back and forth between Palm Springs and Los Angeles every other week, every single week, with regular cadence, and staying at a ton of different Airbnbs along the way. And my experience has been, like Deanna said, about like transactional. You can really sense and feel a passion when you come to a place, or when you like enter into someone else's spaces that they've thought about. And so you can see or feel a lot about a space just by coming in, and what kind of artwork is on the walls, what colors is the palette of the space.
The lighting.
The lighting is a huge one. The acoustics too. Yeah. So yes, like sometimes little touches like that can go such a long way. But like when they're missing, it's like you feel like you're living in an office almost, or you can, especially if the lighting is too blue and things like that. And those things that I don't think everybody necessarily thinks of, who are maybe in the Airbnb scale, the smaller spaces, those somehow they always feel like they're lacking something. Oh, they really do. And it feels like such a low fruit too, that like it wouldn't take much for that level of thought to go into making that a better experience. So like you can very quickly go from a not so great or a mediocre experience to at least something that is at least somewhat comfortable.
Yeah. And like you said, maybe without the architecture training, people won't be exactly able to pinpoint what's missing or that the lighting is the wrong thing, but you feel something is off, right? And it's those little things of spending time in a space and getting to know it and making it feel better for your guests, rather than, like you said, Deanna, just does it take a nice photograph and am I going to get the booking?
Yeah.
Final question for you both. What does hospitality mean to you? And is there anyone, a person, a brand that you feel has truly mastered it?
Oh, that's such a good question.
Yeah.
Hospitality, to me, I'll answer from me. I don't know what your answer is. I mean, I think hospitality really comes down to, like, I think I've mentioned it a couple times. It's just like the thoughtfulness of every detail. You can design a beautiful space, but if the operations are terrible, if you don't feel welcomed, if it feels transactional, you lose it. And same the other way. You can have a amazing operator, but then if the space doesn't reflect that thoughtfulness of catering and caring for the person coming, then I think like you don't have the whole picture of hospitality. I think to me is being very intentional, is the thoughtfulness put into every detail, every experience, is really understanding the human psychology and the way that people use and feel about space. Like spaces are not just shelters, like they really create emotions, and that paired with a fantastic team that makes you feel seen, that makes you feel like you're welcomed and that you belong and that you're cared for. I think that to me is the definition of good hospitality. It should come from both sides, and it's a well-rounded experience. It's not just the parts and the pieces that individually wouldn't work.
And anyone to you that you think has truly mastered it?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think in terms of brands, there's definitely a lot of brands that we look up for that are incredible hotels. Obviously, they tend to be 5-star resorts, so it makes sense. But I think to me, I can think of a lot of people even that exemplify that, which is interesting. Like, there's a lot of people that we know, friends, investors, that I think they exemplify that. They care for people and for the other is like in the most hospitable, like it comes through. And I think like either you're hospitable or not in many
Yeah.
ways. And I can think not just like brands, I think especially at the larger scale, it's easier for them to put the people in the right place. But I think at the smaller scale, and I could name like 5 people out of the top of my head that we're friends with that we always talk about it. We're like, that is it. Like you feel taken care of, and you feel in everything they do, they say, the way that they speak to you, the way that they handle their business, they exemplify that hospitality.
Yeah. Josh, what about you?
To me, hospitality, it's giving more than you take. It's a generosity. And I think it's an attentiveness to whatever you're doing. I don't think it's necessarily hotel specific, but it's really about, leaving a space, a person better than they were when they came in, and finding ways to do that no matter what that means. So it comes back to, it's as simple as just a really positive way of speaking to somebody, listening to them, greeting them and really making their day better. So whatever you can give somebody or something to leave it better than you found it. That's the way I would describe hospitality to be. Is it's this? It's like I don't know. Maybe that's a good enough way to describe it, but I think that the people I would look at is it's the same as what Deanna's saying. I think one of them may or may not have been one of your previous guests on Sweet Success, and I would definitely say that that generosity, making those around you better, making the spaces that you're in better than you found them, is hospitality.
Well, Deanna, Josh, thank you both so much for taking the time to be here today. I have learned so much, and I cannot wait to plan a trip to Terra.
Amazing. Can't wait to have you. And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Katie.
All right, everyone. It's time for today's Sweet Summary, where I break down the key insights and actionable takeaways from today's conversation. I know we talked about it a few times during the episode, but Deanna's comment to me when we first met has become somewhat of a mantra in my life. Everyone has an unfair advantage. You just need to figure out what yours is. What I love about that sentiment is it puts us back into the driver's seat. It's easier to sit on the sidelines, envious over what other people are doing or what they have, and think to ourselves, well, of course they did that. It's easier for them. I'm just insert whatever limiting label we've given ourselves. In Deanna and Josh's case, I'm not proud to admit this, but that was my first thought. I found myself thinking, well, they're architects. Of course, they can renovate a hotel. I'm just a publicist. And that's exactly why Deanna's point about identity is so powerful. The stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we can or can't do shape everything. So instead of letting those stories hold us back, how can we use them to move us forward? To recognize our own unique skills and passions and give ourselves permission to try something different, even if it's not the same path that others around us are following. On the flip side, Deanna and Josh also reminded me how much the people we surround ourselves with and the environments we place ourselves within can shape our own journey. It's not about copying someone else's formula. It's about intentionally finding rooms of people who illuminate your next step. Deanna and Josh knew architecture and large-scale design, but underwriting a hotel, financing a deal, that wasn't in their wheelhouse yet. So they found mentors. They asked questions. They stayed curious. Overall, Deanna and Josh left me with a few pertinent reminders. The first, every single day, someone with less experience than you is doing the thing you dream about. Let that motivate you to get started now, not discourage you. Second, say your dreams out loud, even if they're still forming. When Deanna and Josh started telling people they wanted to invest in hotels, it created a chain reaction that led them to the exact connections they needed. And third, just keep going. If Deanna and Josh had quit after their first or even second hotel project fell through, they would have never created Terra, found their rhythm, and identified what's next for them. So today, let's spend some time figuring out what our own unfair advantage is. And once you've discovered what it is, use it and watch what happens next. And that concludes another episode of Sweet Success. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. We all know how important those 5-star reviews are. I also want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in. It means the absolute world to me. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas for future guests, new topics to cover, or even just want to say hi, don't be shy. Message me through our website, sweetsuccesspodcast.com, or on social media at Sweet Success Podcast. That's sweet like hotel suite. Once again, I'm your host, Katie Cline, and I'm super excited to see you all next week.